But yeah,
But
in
yeah,
games that are out, and well, basically I've been playing Watch Dogs Legion.
bluff,
Um,
bluff. Watch bluff, bluff.
Watch Bluff, yes. I've mentioned before on this podcast, I think, my love for Watch Dogs 2. I think
You loved it.
yeah, I think the first Watch Dogs had a cool idea, and then one of the most bland protagonists I've ever played as in a video game. Just like really boring story, really boring protagonist, but a good like proof of concept of what that
The
sort
world.
of open world sandbox could be. And then I felt like it was weird. Watch Dogs 2, all the marketing, I was like, oh, this looks kind of
It looked like it was going to be a big miss, to be
yeah,
completely
because
honest.
it looked like it was leaning into like meme culture a lot and like that, that sort of like, oh, we understand the internet type of thing.
Yeah.
But it ended up being really good. I thought the cast was really cool because it was like this ragtag group of young adults who were very smart, but also very like, again, like hip within the culture, like going out and taking out
How do
big
you do for like
corporations. Exactly. Like, I mean, when I saw a character who had a mask that had like emotes on it, I was like, this is the dumbest thing
This
ever.
is, yeah, it's ridiculous.
But then his actual character was like pretty amazing. Like really personable and just really fun to talk to. And I thought the main character was great, Marcus Holloway. And I just thought it struck the right balance of like the sandbox playground with hacking and emphasizing stealth, over killing, because you like these teenage like rebel crew, like murder just doesn't seem to like fit within. I mean, you could murder people 100%, but it just didn't fit within like their sort of style.
Yeah.
And I just thought San Francisco was a cool place to explore, and I really just thought it was like Assassin's Creed 2 for the Watch Dogs series. It like hit the right notes. So Watch Dogs Legion in that respect feels a lot like a disappointment. I don't think it's a bad game. And I don't think it's as bad as the first Watch Dogs. I just don't think it's as good as Watch Dogs 2, like not even close. So the whole hook here is this idea that you can play as anyone. So you're in a future London, and DedSec has been framed for some terrorist attacks, DedSec being the hacking group that you play as in all three games. And they've kind of like gone into hiding. And you now have to kind of rebuild them by recruiting people, anyone.
But literally anyone off the street.
Yeah, literally anyone off the street. And the idea is like, hey, you can play as anyone. And every one of these NPCs has certain traits that you can exploit and make use of. I mean, some are pretty useless. Like some of the, like some people you'll go to and it's like, this person owns a car. And it's like, that's great. I can hack every fucking car in this world. So why would I need that? But then some are like awesome. Like some people have like traits of being like a spy or a construction worker, which will give them access to certain areas or access to certain gadgets and weapons. I mean, early in the game, they kind of introduce you to the system by saying, okay, well, you need a construction drone, and the only people that have construction drones are construction workers. So you need to recruit a construction worker. And then when you recruit a construction worker, it's like, oh, you have a construction uniform, so now you can enter construction workspaces without alerting anyone. Stuff like that. And you're like, oh, these are all, cool, really like interesting traits and considerations that might come into play when I'm actually playing the broader game of, the missions and tackling hideouts and stuff. And that's where I feel like it falls apart. It's like recruiting all these recruits is cool, and finding people that match your playstyle is cool. And, just being able to hunt out recruits out of this massive world where anyone can be a potential recruit is, I think, a really cool idea. Especially when you start getting into these situations where eventually to recruit certain people, you have to follow their like routine. So you'll get like sort of like a sheet of like at 9 a.m. in the morning, they're here, at 5 p.m. they're here. And you have to like kind of plan where you're going to intercept them to try and, recruit them, or how you're going to break their routine so that they become more attuned for DedSec. So like there's an example that floats around on Twitter a lot where if you kill a certain NPC's like husband, instead of going to the coffee shop, their schedule changes to going to the cemetery type of thing.
Wow.
So there's
Yeah.
lots of like emergent gameplay moments in those sort of senses, but it makes absolutely no impact, I feel, to the core story. Like none of those emergent moments change the way you play Watch Dogs, because all it is, it feels like a very old open world game where it's like London is split up into like regions, and it's like, okay, you've got to do these 2 or 3 missions to liberate this region. And then when it's
Okay.
liberated, then you'll have more recruits to pick from there, and just do that around London. And it's like, okay, this feels like a open world game from like 2013. You know what I
10
mean?
years ago, yeah.
And then on top of that, those missions are like really, really, they don't differentiate themselves. It's like, this is an enemy hideout. Get in there, hack a thing, get out. Or,
Okay.
hey, this is a piece of propaganda. Get in there, hack the thing to change it, get out. And it's just like,
I like the
Like-
hacker thing.
like there was one, this was the point, and it was pretty early on in the game where I realized that the AI or the scenarios were designed in such a, I guess, in a one-note way that getting around them creatively wasn't interesting. So I had to hack this piece of propaganda on Buckingham Palace, like where the
Oh.
Queen lives. You know,
Is
Elizabeth.
she still
she's-
alive in this game? This is set
they
in the
don't
future,
say.
right?
They don't say. But
She's immortal.
if
They
she
won't
is,
tell you.
she's chilling there. There's a lot of security there, like the gates to the gardens and the main gates, whatever. Lots of security. So I was like, okay, how am I going to get around here? So I start scoping out the place. One of my favorite things in Watch Dogs is doing security camera hopping, where you hack a security camera and then any security cameras nearby you can hack. So you can basically hop around an area
Yeah.
and like survey it. So I'm like looking. I'm like, okay, cool. I could get in here. I could get in there. And then I was just like, wait, I've got a construction. I need to get on the roof of Buckingham Palace. But I've got a construction guy and he's got a construction drone. So I just called my construction drone in literally in front of the gates of Buckingham Palace. Like all the guards could see me. I called it in, parked it on the road, changed back to my character, got him to jump on top of the drone, then changed
Yeah.
back to the drone, and then just took it into the air. Like I just took it up, took it high, and then I just drove forward. And then
And
I
that was
landed on the
it.
roof. I landed right next to my objective. I hacked it. I got back on the drone. I flew.
just-
I came down. Not one alarm,
Easiest mission.
not one alert. No one gave a shit. And I was just like, really? Is that really?
Well, they were like, if old age can't get the queen, then what does it matter if this dude can get on the roof? Yeah, look,
But,
I think
I was just like, okay, cool. That was an inventive way of getting around it. But like, I could do that for so many
you
objectives.
could
And
do
like,
it for
there's
any other
no
mission now.
challenge
It's like,
to it. Like,
yeah, just land on the roof of any building.
And like the whole idea of, oh, you're a construction worker and you've got clothing that will keep you disguised. Like there are so few instances where I thought that would be even useful, because I can sneak into places so easily. Like it's so easy to sneak in a place, press a button to distract someone on their phone by hacking their phone, and just run in there and hit their head and knock them out. Like
That's it.
like it's so simple. And then in one other hideout, I got caught while trying to get inside because it was like a big hideout. So I ran into this room and have like a stun gun, which if I headshot someone with a stun gun, they're just like
They
either
die.
they take 1 or 2 shots or they like go down. So I just hid behind like a table, and all these enemies filtered into the room one by one through the door, and I just headshot them, all of them, till they were all
Just
dead.
like real life.
And
Did
then
you
I
go-
was like, well, that was boring. So I think because the objectives never change, it's always like, get in here, hack a thing, get out.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, so
Ugh.
those are more the side quests, right? Do you find that even the main
those
story
are the
has?
main quests.
Oh, those are the main quests.
That's part of the main, like to liberate an area, I need to do these like propaganda areas and hideouts and stuff. And then the main quests are like, they aren't too dissimilar. You sometimes end up going back to places you've already like infiltrated and just doing the same thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I-
look. So, no. Sorry,
It's-
go for it.
It's just, and then on top of it, like, I really like this idea of like you can play as anyone, because I like the idea of all these traits and stuff. I also think that if you're playing, you should play with permadeath on. It defaults to off, but I think it's really fun playing with the fact that you could lose a recruit at any time. I think that is a fun layer
Well,
on the game.
It ups the stakes.
It does,
you
and I
play a
don't
lot
think
more
it's
carefully.
it's not like an XCOM where like random luck can really fuck you over. Like there is a way to get a game over state, but obviously if you're not playing on like Iron Man mode, then you can reload a save and whatever. I just think it adds some tension to the game because it's completely lacking that in every other way.
Yeah.
But I also think, I don't know, I never felt compelled to change between my recruits. It was always, I was changing between them because one guy had something cool, not because, this mission would be a lot better if I used this type of recruit as opposed to this one. It was never that. It was more just like, okay, I really like this recruit. I'm going to play as him or her quite a bit. And that was it. And part of the problem with having this you can play as anyone is I struggle to connect with any of my characters because they all have such terrible canned dialogue. Like, we've come off from a game like Hades with such great writing and like interwoven emergent storytelling. And obviously Watch Dogs and Hades are two very different games in terms of scope, especially when it comes to dialogue. But man, the dialogue for all these characters that you are able to play as and recruit sounds so... It just sounds canned. Like they say things that make no sense. Sometimes the voices really don't match the bodies you're playing as. Like they absolutely do not make sense. And all of their dialogue is so vague and inconsequential so that when they're talking to the other quote unquote main characters in the game, which is like Bagley, who's your AI, or I think her name's Sabine. She's like the leader of DedSec. They are real characters, so they providing a lot of the exposition and a lot of the dialogue, and your character is usually just replying with this like canned, generic reply, and it's like your character can't connect with them because the game doesn't know who your character is at any given time. It just doesn't work. Like it's a great idea, but it just doesn't.
Yeah, well,
doesn't
I
work.
think that was probably not only my biggest concern, but the biggest concern of a lot of people. Where on paper it sounds very ambitious. Like I think that it's something stupid. Like you can play from 9 million something.
It's ridiculously ambitious.
Like it's a stupidly high number. But at the end of the day, you have to sit and think like, does it really pay off in that way? Like, does it really have that big of a difference being able to recruit any of the 9 million people? Like, how could it possibly be there are 9 million different instances of characters? Like, sure, maybe their models and their perks and whatever will be different. But when it comes to like dialogue and story writing, I mean, we don't have AI to write.
It's a fucking
voice
headache.
lines, for example. It's a limited resource team of humans trying to write up a batch of dialogue, for however many people. So I think that is my biggest concern with the game. And I think, like you've said, it where it falls apart is the fact that you don't really get to connect with the story, I guess, because they've just used like vanilla or almost generic lines because they don't know what character you're playing and how you're interacting with the other quote unquote main characters. So like, look, I don't know, like maybe I'm not the right person to say this because I haven't actually played the game, but just based on what you've said, it's almost like, why did they not instead just say you can choose from 30 different recruits, for example, like limit that pool to, here's like, you do have this old granny who's got this perk, whatever, or you can choose from this young teenager, and we've got voice actors and actresses for these 30 characters, and we've really fleshed them out. There are now different endings as a result. Like that to me seems more achievable. So like, I don't know how the game ends, but the fact that you have so many different characters and you don't get to connect with the story, I'm already like, I'm personally not keen to play the game.
I mean, I admire the attempt. Like,
look, not to take away from it at all.
Yeah.
but it's just very ambitious.
I think this has got like the framework of something Ubisoft could definitely use in another game. Because I think the like scheduling system and the idea that all these NPCs run an actual routine, like I can't imagine from a technical standpoint, that blows my mind. Like
yeah.
it really is impressive. And, you know, game director Clint Hocking, this is the sort of thing that I expect from him because he's involved with Ubisoft's like weirder takes on franchises like Far Cry 2.
Yeah.
So like I respect that sort of vision. I just don't think it makes for... I just think it's at odds with what the game ends up truly being, which is this is, you know, through and through a Ubisoft sandbox. So you either like it or not. I don't think it evolves that sort of formula in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the question then is like, why did I enjoy Watch Dogs 2 a lot more than this when at their core, the gameplay is very similar. And I think it just comes down to the characters. Like, I really love the cast of Watch Dogs 2. And I think they drove a lot of my interest in that game. Without that here, I just spend a lot more time dissecting and picking apart the missions, which are meant to be like the fun part of the game, because I'm not finding the actual characters at all interesting. And that's, so then it just like starts tumbling. I do think London is a great setting. It's cool to have, man, their roads are fucking weird. Like, holy crap. I mean, okay, firstly, being able to drive on the right side of the road, awesome. Very cool in the video game. But wow, I mean, I've been to London very briefly, but I've never driven there, and I don't think I ever want to because, wow, those roads are confusing. They are so confusing.
I think it's an interesting setting from that regard because think of any other open world game like GTA, for example. There's these nice big open roads and main roads and side roads and highways. London's not that. London's like this dense city, you know?
Dense, all these circles, all these weird intersections that make no sense to my head. Like it's cool from that perspective. One thing I also found weird, I don't know if it's just random luck or not, but all the cars I've hijacked have not had people in them. A lot of
self-driving cars.
I mean, a lot of cars have this little A on the windshield to say that they're auto-driving, but I've never stolen a car from another person.
Oh, wow.
Which makes no sense to me.
So
I've
the cars
stolen
are just
bikes.
driving themselves.
I've stolen bikes, but like the cars are usually like, I just get in and no one's in that car. It's like, is no one commuting in London? Like, what's going on here?
Can you take the underground?
I
suppose if you fast travel, I mean, there's this fast travel thing.
you can. I'm not sure. Oh, that's another thing. The loading screens in this game are horrible. Like,
really?
It takes so long to load into the game initially, and then there's loading screens everywhere. Like, you enter your hideout, loading screen. You change your character, loading screen. You enter a small like enemy encampment for a mission, loading screen.
No,
it's bad. It made me, you know, we're on the E of new consoles and SSDs. I was just like, God,
I was just gonna
us.
say we need next gen consoles now.
This was like a huge wake up call to like SSDs will radically change this game, especially because wow, there are so many loading screens and they are all so long.
Good grief.
I think the initial load into the game is like over 2-3 minutes. It's bad.
Shit.
It's really slow. I guess it's building a lot of other things, but yeah, I don't know. Listen, London is cool, and I think the game looks visually like really good. Obviously, I'm playing on PS4 Pro, so I don't have any of the fancy ray tracing or anything like that on PC, or you know, it will come to new consoles as well. And from what I've seen, that looks even better. But even without that, I think London looks really good. Yeah, I think it's really well designed. I think the future neon aesthetic is pretty good, if a bit sterile, but I think it just looks good. I think maybe that's, again, because it's a completely different setting. It's not an American setting, which is just a nice change, you know what I mean?
It's different, yeah.
Yeah, Watch Dogs Legion,
Watch Dogs.
Not a bad game, just, for me, a disappointment after how much I loved the second one. There are many reviews you can read online that are far more positive than me. The other Alessandro at GameSpot, Alessandro Filari, enjoyed the game a lot more than I did. So if you want you should always seek out different opinions. Go read his review. It's really good.
Well, don't pretend like he's a different person. It's your alter ego.
He's
So
great.
Alessandro Barbosa is the one who gives the negative reviews, and he's the one who's like, I like this guy.
It's great because when I started, when we covered events, like he would be helping out with news, and Timur, who's managing editor at GameSpot, he would always, at first he was just saying Alessandro, and both of us would be like, which one? So now he calls Alessandro Folari Alessandro, and he calls me Barbosa. So now we know.
Barbosa, get me pictures of Spider-Man. Like, okay.
Essentially, yes. I mean, if it's a game about Spider-Man, that's literally what is being said. So yeah.
Yeah.
But that's all
So
I've been
Watch
playing.
Dogs.